Okay, Year 10, so welcome back and welcome to Lesson 5 in the lessons and videos that I'm uploading to support you with the home learning that you've been sent from school. So again, we're continuing with completing these revision Cornell note sheets, and today we're going to look specifically at Causley's poem Eden Rock. Now in front of you, can you please get your poetry knowledge organiser, and of course you're going to need a blank copy of one of the sheets you've been sent in for home learning. If you have annotated this poem in your anthology, then that's excellent, and if you could please turn to that page in your anthology. Now if you have not annotated this in your anthology, you are going to need this annotated before you return back to school, and I know that a lot of you haven't got this one annotated because it was one of the last ones we've done. So if you can, print a copy off if you don't have your anthology at home, or neatly handwrite out the poem. I know that will take forever, but it'll be worth it when you return back to school, so we can have an annotated copy of this ready to go when we are back at school, because we know we need all of those 15 poems annotated. And for the unmissable quotation section within this video, I have taken that into account, and I have also done a line by line analysis for you. So the summary of the poem then, okay, the speaker in this poem is reminiscing about his parents as a young couple, and the poem is heavily rooted in this idea of nostalgia, and he is almost very nostalgic about his parents' youth and his own childhood. And the speaker specifically is recalling an event of his parents having a picnic by a stream, and he is watching from the other side of the stream. The memory is a very simple memory, but I think that's chosen for specific effect because it's a simple yet magical moment that he is recalling the speaker, and that adds into Causley's wider message that about people and memories are perhaps more valuable to us than wealth. And at the end of the poem though, there is a more melancholy tone. The speaker feels encouraged to cross the stream. He seems to feel like his parents are inviting him to cross the stream, and crossing seems metaphorically to be a euphemism for death, and it's almost like he feels this longing and desire to cross and join his parents in what seems to, in his mind, be the afterlife. So if you would like to just pause the video there, you're going to need to complete the summary of the poem box on the top of your sheet you've been sent for home learning. But also, if you are annotating the poem, can you please make a simple summary at the top of the page, just as we've done for all of the poems we've annotated. We've put a simple summary of the poem at the top of the page. Okay, so if you want to pause the video, that would be excellent. Okay, now what I've done here is I've done a full line by line analysis, okay? So if you are annotating the poem, rather than filling in the note sheet first, and you're going to annotate and then fill in the note sheet, that's excellent, and we know that's very important. You may want to pause at different points. If you have already annotated the poem in your anthology, I would encourage you to watch this bit because I talk in detail about some of the unmissable quotations, and then pause it once I've gone through the poem, and then you can choose 3. Or alternatively, if you have already got it annotated in your poem, you could look at perhaps the 3 quotations you think are most important, and while you're watching, begin to fill in that sheet. Okay, so we're going to start with this first line. They are waiting for me somewhere beyond Eden Rock. Now, I think this line is very significant because waiting implies a sense that everybody wishes for the family unit to be united, and it's almost as though he feels like his parents are waiting for him to join them in this afterlife. Now, of course, Eden Rock isn't actually a place, and Causley made it up, but the word Eden evokes this biblical imagery, and it seems to suggest to me that his parents are in heaven, that they're in a blissful, idyllic afterlife, but that the idea they are beyond Eden Rock, I think, is also really significant. Why is that word beyond being used? Well, on one level, I think it emphasises the distance between this world and the afterlife, and therefore the distance between him and his parents, and how he's finding this distance extremely difficult to deal with. But also, I think beyond could also evoke the idea that they are somewhere maybe even greater than heaven. His parents were so wonderful and magical that they are now somewhere even greater than heaven. Now we come on to the fact that he remembers his father at 25 and his mother at 23. It's almost like he is remembering them at their prime. Maybe he feels that this was the happiest time in their relationship, perhaps. And maybe he feels that they've returned to this prime in the afterlife, perhaps. Now, in the second stanza, the semantic field of imagery, I've made a typo there. That should say the semantic field of light is introduced in this stanza. Now, significantly though, the stiff white cloth, that is the tablecloth which is spread over the grass, to me seems to be really symbolically significant. Now, of course, we know white has connotations of purity, and perhaps this seems to reflect his view that his childhood was pure and untainted by misery, just like the tablecloth is purely white and beautiful. His childhood was this untainted, beautiful, white and pure life. Or maybe the idea it's stiff could be symbolically significant. Could this be the strength that he admires so much in his mum? Now, her hair, the colour of wheat takes on the light. Now, this is most definitely Year 10 an unmissable quotation, because the imagery of the white hair and the light here creates this sense, this image that his mum is almost angelic, like an angel. Now, on one level, that could reflect his deep admiration for his mum, his admiration of her beauty, his admiration of everything that makes her wonderful and great. And it could also emphasise the idea that his mum is now perhaps in heaven and like an angel looking down on him, protecting him in this world. Now, I've highlighted a thermos flask. I'm sure you all know what one of those is. And HP sauce bottle. These these references really add to this nostalgia. They are simple and basic items. They are very mundane day-to-day things. However, they are presented in such a way that makes them almost seem magical, and this is bringing us back to Causley's message that we should appreciate the little simple things in our lives because they can be so wonderful. Now, I've put these two on together here because I've highlighted 3 same plays, because I think 3 seems to be really symbolically significant, because 3 seems to reflect the family unit, perhaps, that they were the perfect 3. And also though, the sky whitens as if lit by 3 suns. This seems to symbolise the idea of 3 people in heaven. And is it that the sky is brighter when he joins them in heaven? Is it that he becomes one of these suns lighting up the sky beautifully? Or is it again, this return to the imagery and the semantic field of light conveys this sacredness and this purity that his parents brought to his life? They were literally the light of his life that were guiding him through life. And it's as if when they were around, the world was so much more of a brighter, a more magical, a more special place, perhaps. Now we come on to the really symbolically significant image of the drifted stream. Now we know in this poem the stream seems to be a physical barrier between him and his parents. He seems to be sat at the other side of the stream. But of course, this imagery of a flowing stream, could that perhaps reflect the inevitability that life will flow on and he will join his parents in the afterlife, perhaps? Or is the stream this simply symbolising the barrier he faces between this world and the afterlife, perhaps? Now, I think the caesura before leisurely and then the word leisurely is really significant here, because that seems to slow the pace of the poem. And maybe this is symbolising and reflecting the slowing pace of his life as he slows in readiness to perhaps join his parents in the afterlife. Now, they beckon to me from the other bank. I think on one level this reflects the idea that he has this deep desperation almost for for him. He has this deep desperation to be reconnected and reunited with his parents. However, could this be that the speaker's mind is delusional? Would his parents really want him to join them in the afterlife, or is it actually that his life has now slowed, just as the pace of the poem slowed, and he is readying himself for his own death, and he is readying himself to join his parents in the afterlife? Now, crossing is not as hard as you might think. Crossing is a euphemism for death here. I think crossing the stream is dying, but I think, is it that this actually, it's not as hard as we might think, because actually at this point in his life, death is easier than living, and for whatever reason that might be. And then I think this line, of course, we're going to look at the broken quatrain when we look at structure on the next slide, but this line, I had not thought it would be like this. Well, that's a very melancholy ending, and it's a little bit ambiguous. Is it that he didn't think life without his parents would be like it is, and that actually it's much more painful than he thought it would be? Or is it in fact that he didn't think death would be as it has been, and he's almost sad that he didn't think, he hoped for more from death and the afterlife, perhaps? Right, okay, so you're going to need to pause the video here, Year 10. If you are just filling out the sheet that you've been sent for home learning, you just need to choose 3 unmissable quotations. Now, I think you can't move away from her hair and the colour of wheat takes on the light. The angelic imagery is really significant. I think over the drifted stream is also really significant, so I would make sure I definitely included those 2. But I would then pick another quote, or another one of the key ones for you to include. If you haven't got this annotated, you may want to pause the video for slightly longer and give yourself a chance to copy my annotations. Of course, correcting the typo where I talk about the semantic field of imagery, I mean the semantic field and imagery of light, okay? Excellent. So if you want to pause the video, that would be great, and make sure you get that missable quotation section filled in and your poem annotated if needs be. Right, okay, so returning back to this now, we're going to look at the structure and form of the poem. Now, interestingly, for this poem, I've picked out 3 key points that I think are really important to talk about when we consider the structure and form. So the poem has 10 syllables in each line, and I think that's really important because it reflects the stability and security that his parents brought to his life, and the speaker felt almost sort of like his life was rhythmical and secure and stable when they were alive, perhaps. However, also the final line is very nearly monosyllabic, and so the words each seem to only have 1 syllable, and well, that perhaps reflects that speaker's longing and desire to return to his childhood and a time when his parents were around. Now, as I mentioned on the previous slide, the poem is in perfect quatrains, apart from that final stanza where these perfect quatrains are broken by the final line, and that seems to be highly symbolically significant. Now, the quatrains themselves could symbolise the steadiness and stability that his parents gave him, whereas the broken quatrain at the end could symbolise literally the physical distance between his parents in the afterlife and him, just as the stream does. Or it could also symbolise the heartbreak and the break in his life that he feels having lost his parents. Now, there are also steady and consistent rhymes in this poem, but they are half rhymes, and I don't think we can escape the fact that those half rhymes perhaps reflect that he feels half complete without his parents. Okay, so Year 10, there's your 3 points on form and structure. If you would again like to pause the video, complete your structure and form box, and if you are annotating, add these notes about structure and form to the bottom of your page as we would have done in your anthology, okay, and as we've done for the other poems. Right, okay, so how would I compare, or what would I choose to compare Eden Rock to? Well, I think your focus of comparison is likely to be rooted in the idea of nostalgia and memories, because I think that's such a central theme to this poem that would be the first point of call I would look to make a comparison with another poem. You may also choose a parent-child relationship poem to compare it to, but it wouldn't necessarily need to be a parent-child relationship. Now I've picked out the two I would choose here. So now my first choice would probably be Duffy's Before You Were Mine, because both poems seem to celebrate the vibrancy of their parents' youth. Both speakers are full of this admiration for their parents in their prime of life. And both poems reflect on the past in a very nostalgic way. Maybe we could argue that grief and the loss of their parents has almost tainted their memories to make them even more magical and majestic than they were. Another poem I would choose is perhaps an interesting choice, but I would maybe also consider looking at Dooley's Letters from Yorkshire, because I think both poems look at things from their past with rose-tinted glasses. They look at things in a more positive light than they perhaps would have at the time. And both poems explore how people cope with the things that they miss in life. As Causley and the speaker in this poem seems to look to how he can overcome the stream, Dooley, or the speaker in Letters from Yorkshire, is looking how she can overcome those icy miles between where she is now and her hometown. So, if you would like to choose one of those, please, Year 10, or one of your own, following my little bullet points at the top. If you would like to pause the video and complete your comparisons box, that would be great. Okay then, so we're moving on to our final slide and our final box then. And of course this is the wider messages and ideas box. And when we think about literature, we must be very clear that we need to think about what that poet was trying to achieve, what they were trying to teach us and what they were trying to say. Now perhaps Causley's main message in this poem is that we should appreciate our loved ones when they are with us, that our loved ones are very special to us and we should appreciate them. But also the nostalgia that is rooted in that poem could convey the idea that things that now seem very mundane and normal may at one time be very special memories, so that we should appreciate the little and the small things in our lives. And I think actually he could also be suggesting that our memories of our loved ones and our loved ones themselves should be the most valuable things to us, rather than materialistic wealth, that we should appreciate the smaller things within our life and not always focus on wealth and consumerism and perhaps the more materialistic aspects of life. Okay, Year 10, I hope that has helped. I hope that's allowed you to fill in that sheet on Eden Rock and catch up any missing annotations, and I will see you in the next video.